everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting. In our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago, this week we're looking back at the hot comics from January 29th, 2021. And I'm recording this a little earlier than typical in the week. I'm recording this on Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. As always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Town Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. We use those two lists as just examples of what's going on in the market, what books were hot back then, and we see what's happened since then. So we're looking at, what trends affected them then. Have they fallen back? Have they continued to grow in value? So we all make better decisions about which books we chase and which books we're patient on. See if we can spot those trends and those patterns. So we got 18 books this week, so let's get into this week's list. First up, we have Mystic number 15. This hit the list because it's the first Harry Potter in comics, sort of, maybe. Basically, this is a book that has like some unofficial crossovers. There's a character that appears to look a lot like Harry that's in this book. It's not really official. It's not authorized. It's not really Harry. But anyway, back then people were paying $50 to $80 for this thing. Yeah, I called this a dumpster fire, and it was. It's a $5 to $20 book now. Just the kid sort of looks like Harry. That's what they're trying to represent, but that's not. It doesn't count. And so this one has fallen way down in price. Next, we have more Harry Potter stuff. Not sure what prompted this. I don't really remember. But this is Love is Love, number 1. And this hit the list because there's a piece of art in it. There's some like pages with just like art in there, or whatever. I forget what they call those. There's just some splash pages with just different characters that were done by different artists. Jim Lee did a page of Harry Potter that is in the book. Again, this is unofficial, not necessarily authorized, but it was in there. So raw copies of this were going for $40 to $60. And now it's a $20 to $40 book. So this one hasn't fallen back quite as much as that other one. So it's more of an I'll be back. 9.8 of this have went anywhere from 75 to 175. So there's a wide range on this. Not sure I would really invest. Again, it's just there's no story, there's no nothing. It's just a piece of art with Harry in it in the book. So with that, we're going to move into something a little more typical. It hits our list, which is some option news. We got Electric Black number 1, and basically this is another one of those horror anthology comics, kind of like Ice Cream Man, that kind of stuff. And this supposedly has a cartoon show coming based on it. So that will be interesting. Back then it jumped up with this option news. It jumped up to $15 to $20. Now it's at $10 to $20. 9.8 will go for 100, 120. So this has actually been fairly steady in it, just under 20 to a little lower price range. Definitely an I'll be back. You have been able to get it for a little bit cheaper, but at occasion. But yeah, it's been pretty steady overall. So next, for the third week in a row, we have Port of Earth number 1, because it's in production at Amazon. Now, I think it's like, was on a list, went to the other list, came back to the other list. Like, it's been switching lists and that kind of stuff. But at this point, it was up to $35 to $40 after its third straight week hitting a list. Now it's a $1 to $20 book. 9.8 will run you at 90 to 140. So this one definitely turned into, by this point, last couple weeks we talked about it as an I'll be back when it was going in the 20s. At this point, it was definitely a trap by the time I got up to $40. So, with that, we're going to move over to Sandman number 6. No real necessarily a key here, kind of a freaky, pretty dark story in this particular issue. And basically, news came out that this issue, at least one episode, was going to be based on this issue, and they were working on filming it and that kind of stuff with the new show. So it caused this book to jump a little bit. $20 for raw copies at 9.8 hit 200. Raw copies now are 10 to 25. Again, you can get some bargains, but it's mostly in the same range. There was a 9.8 sale that was up, that was at $285, but there was only the one sale, and that was way back on May 30th. So at this point, I would call it pretty steady overall, just because of going on the raw sales, because that's really what's the only ones that are really happening consistently in the market. So with that, we're going to move on to Borderlands Origins #1, the origin of Roland and Lilith, and basically there's rumors of a Borderlands movie, rumors that these characters might be in it, or that they were cast potentially for the movie. So caused raw copies of this book to jump to $30 to $50. Now they're $5 to $15. Another one that's turned into a bit of a trap. So we started off with a couple of steady books, but a lot of traps at the beginning of this list this week. Who knows when or if this movie is actually going to get made and released. So that's really what's going on here. This book is falling way back down. Next, we have Magic the Gathering, the Shadow Mage #1 from 1995. We knew that they were bringing back the Magic comic books, and there were also reports of maybe a movie or something at some point. So that's what caused this book to hit the list. Raw copies were going for $5 to $10. 9.8 hit $175. I call this one a trap because this book is way overprinted. Having said that, it's kind of held. It was only going for 5 to 10. It's kind of held that 5 to 15-ish range. So it's been pretty steady, actually. But considering how low the value was to start with, that's not necessarily a surprise. Sometimes I get a little on these ones that don't jump that much. That I don't think are going to continue to really have interest, which this one doesn't. Not very many sales. I put trap, even though they're really not going to change in value much. Next, we have Godzilla #1. This is the first appearance of Godzilla in American comics. And this is the King Kong versus Godzilla trailer dropped, which caused raw copies of this to jump to $55. 9.8 was hitting $300. Now, raws are $20 to $70. 9.8 to $285. Again, just one sale. This is another one that's kind of been an I'll be back. It's down a little bit. I would say most of the raw copies are really in the $30 to $50 range, so just down a little bit from that kind of average that it had before. Although occasionally it's been going for more than that. So this is Godzilla #1. Next, we're going to move out of option movies and that kind of stuff news, and we're going to move into some covers. Our first cover is going to be Spawn #314. This is the Greg Capullo pencil variant, pencil sketch variant, which was a 1 in 50. Back then at release, it was going anywhere from $75 to $175 for raw copies. Now it's a $70 to $90 book, 9.8. There's been 2 sales. They went for $200 and $300 respectively. This has been a bit of an I'll be back also. It's definitely come back down to earth from where it was at. When it first got released, there was a lot of interest then, but it's not that hard to find. And so it's holding really good value for 1 in 50, but still down from what the peak was. With that, we're going to move on to Something is Killing the Children #3, the second print. And if you know anything about what's been going on with this list or this series, then this is straight cash. Back then, the second print was going for $400 raw, 9.8 were going for $700. Now it's $400 to $700 raw, 9.8 are going for $900 to $1,000. This book, just like the series, just keeps going. It's a really cool cover, and people are just digging the series and digging all these covers, and they continue to climb. We'll see how long it can last. I can't imagine the climb can last much longer. I imagine I would think they would start to settle a little bit, but we'll see. Next, we have Dr. Aphra #7, the 1 in 25 Jenny Frison variant, also on the list for a second week in a row. Raw copies were going for $180 to $200 back then. Last time we talked about them, they were around $150. We talked about them last week. Now they're going $70 to $150. So this has definitely turned a little bit into a trap with the increase in price. Definitely the $200, and you can get it occasionally for around $100. That's a pretty good trap. 9.8, again, just one sale there, $400. So this one's definitely turned into a bit of an I'll be back or a trap, even with these higher prices. Still going for really good value for a 1 in 25, but just not where it was peaked at 6 months ago. So a little patience would have paid off here. Next book, which I thought patience might have paid off on, would not have, and that is Thrawn #1, the Matina 1 in 50. This is a pretty hard to find variant. This is the origin of Thrawn. People know Thrawn is coming at some point to those Disney Plus series, Star Wars series. So this book, back then, a 9.8 went for $2,100. This is just a really cool cover in addition to the key aspect to it. Now, raw copies, there's only been one sale. Almost everybody's just sent their book in to be slabbed. The only raw sale recently was for $600. 9.8s are going for $2,100 to $3,000 now. So another one that's up. Yeah, I definitely whiffed on this one in my prediction of I'll be back, but this one has continued to climb. The next, we have one kind of comic buzz book of the week, and that is Star Wars: The High Republic, #1, the second print. With all those kind of first appearances, that series is coming out. It was going for $15 to $25 out the gate. Now it's going for $5 to $15. 9.8s are only $35 to $60. So yeah, not as hard to find, I think, as people thought it might have been initially. People are more focused on the first prints at this point, a couple of those covers, and this one, the cover's not that great. So this has definitely turned into an I'll be back, at least for now. So with that, we're going to move into MCU for our last 5 books this week. First up, we have Young Avengers #10. First appearance of Tommy Shepard of Speed, one of Wanda's sons. Raw copies back then were going for $40. 9.8s were going for $250. In the aftermath of the twins being introduced on WandaVision. This is another one I thought maybe I'll be back, that it might cool off after we got away from the show. Not really. Raw copies are still going for $25 to $75. 9.8s now are hitting $350 plus. So 9.8s have continued to increase, but there's very few. There's only 2 of those sales, so it's kind of hard to really judge there. So overall, we call this one kind of up and worth it. Raw copies have continued to creep up a little bit. 9.8s have jumped, but there's just so few sales, so few of them out there that it's hard to have them be the driving factor here. So next we have House of M #1. This is the Quesada 1 in 20, and obviously this is the issue where Wanda alters reality in the comics. And if you watched any WandaVision, we were starting to get the picture that yes, indeed, it was Wanda by this point that had altered reality in the show. Raw copies of this were going for $100 back then. Now they're going $40 to $90. Storylines were similar in terms of she had altered reality, but very, very different otherwise. 9.8, there was one sale for $650, but this one definitely turned into an I'll be back book that was worth waiting on to try to get later. With that, 3 more books to go. Another book that hit the list last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago maybe on this one. 2 weeks ago on this one. Amazing Spider-Man Annual #16, first appearance of Monica Rambeau. She was becoming a big part of the series, full swing. We were in the middle of all of it. 9.8 finally hit $1,000 back then. Now raw copies are still going to run you $50 to $100, maybe a little over if they're really, really nice. So not too bad. 9.8 still are up to $1,200 to $1,200 to $1,700 in the range. So this one is definitely up and been a straight cash on that 9.8 grade, even though raw copies have kind of stayed right in the same area, if not crept down a little bit since the show was going on. All right, 2 more books. New Mutants '98, first appearance of Deadpool, and basically Feige and Ryan Reynolds were talking about. I think we had a Deadpool book on the list last week. There was talk about that there would be a Deadpool 3, that Disney was going to follow through with it. Back then, a 9.8 hit a record of $1,650, and has since obliterated that record. Right now, 9.8s go for $1,900 to $2,200 consistently. Raw copies are $300 to $600, so this has been a straight cash book for the last 6 months. And Deadpool's, pretty hot character just in general. And last but not least on our list this week is Thor God of Thunder #2. First appearance of Gore the God Butcher. And this is when it became official that Christian Bale was indeed. We'd known Christian Bale had a role in Thor Love and Thunder. There was a debate, would he be Beta Ray Bill? Would he be Dario Auger? Would he be Gore? And we found out for sure that he was going to be Gore the God Butcher. Back then, raw copies jumped up to $190. 9.8s were hitting $400. Now raw copies are kind of $125 to $200. So you can actually find a decent deal on those, but 9.8s have crept on up to $500 to $600. So kind of calling this one up worth it, maybe more than straight cash, just because the raws haven't really moved. The 9.8s have not moved that much, but significantly, but not a ton. So that is this week's list. We had 5 MCU books, 3 of them related to WandaVision, and 2 just related to Kevin Feige talking. And then we had a bunch of covers. Something Killing the Children continues to be super hot. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.